Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to by far the least popular series on the channel, but by no means something that's gonna die out anytime soon. Welcome to the Pathfinder Logue. So, to catch up to where we are, it's been 3 weeks. We've had 2 sessions since the last Pathfinder Logue, and we missed a week, as does happen. With these busy times we live in. It's hard to get a D&D group together to play games. So, Wisdom and Makoto had been tasked by the Vagrant King, who's basically like a good aligned lich, I guess, a barrow something or other. He's like the glowy guys from Lord of the Rings, you know what I'm talking about? The ghosty lads? Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, Barrow White, I think is what he's called. All whitey then. So the Vagrant King, the beggar monarch, if you will, gave us the task of finding the cause of these were-rats who had been infiltrating the major city that we're in, and it turned out to be a fairly straightforward task. As a paladin, Makoto just sniffed around using his detect evil, found a huge centroid of evil energy, and we encountered this. I'm not sure if he was a priest. I'm gonna go with priest. Mage kind of deal. Maybe he was a wizard. The reason I say maybe is, well, I tried talking with him. I introduced myself something along the lines of, he was doing some evil meddling with some experimentation he was doing, and I sneak up on him and said something like, come here often? And he told me something about this coming doom and more foreshadowing about how, oh, what is his name? Barusha will rise. And, he went hostile. I moved first. I put a few holes in him. And then he tried to cast a spell, so I stabbed him real good. And then he tried to cast a spell again, so I stabbed him real good. And once again, the thing about attacks of opportunity and casting in a melee is you're really, really likely to get stabbed and just lose your spell. So once Makoto gets to within face-rocking range of evil enemies, all he's got to do is use that good smite evil, and that encounter is pretty well done for. Remind me about that when I come to the next part of our story. So, David and I were kind of nonplussed. I mean, we completed this assignment with no real issues, and yet, I don't know, maybe it was the fact that we spent the first half of the night getting Sam's kids to actually, for realsies, go to bed and stay asleep, or I will put you to sleep. But due to the marked lack of instant nap time, we spent a good part of our D&D night not playing D&D, but hanging out and watching Sam take off to go deal with his kids. 5 boys. Did I tell you that they have 5 boys? Yeah. You better jump in there, Dad, and do what needs to be done. God bless you. So, we planned another encounter, just something real quick for funsies. And we got the group together again a week later, and skipping over some things here, but suffice to say, not a whole lot happened. with that first night that we're catching up on. The next night, excited. I get so excited about Pathfinder night. It's so cool to get together with my friends in the real world, as the majority of my social life is on YouTube and on Discord, as you guys can probably tell. And I was so thrilled to get together with my buddy David and my buddy Sam and his family. And the next night was a lot of fun. We might have picked up a level. I think we started at level 6 the previous week, got to level 7 by this point, and at level 9 I have something pretty special coming. So we'll talk about that later, but more story. But for the most part, the next week was also just us growing very rapidly in power and sort of story emerging around what was happening. And I did have a great opportunity to have some fun with my character, which is what I'm always looking forward to, taking a simple task and coming up with a far overly complex plan to accomplish it. No industrial quantities of aromatic cheeses with this one, but we came close. So the Vagrant King had another task for us. We did a good job of mopping up that strange experimentation that was going on. Turns out that wizard or cleric or whoever he was before I put a whole lot of holes in his body. Oh, we actually, by the way, I finished him off with subdual damage, smacking him upside the head with the pommel of my rapier, to the extent that he didn't die. We delivered him alive, very much unconscious, to the Vagrant King. So he found out, presumably, quite a bit about what that nefarious character had been up to. And the next task we get from the Vagrant King is to investigate a cult. And I got so excited about this. I've always wanted to join a cult, says Nagano Makoto, prime mover in the cat cult. So I talked with David and I said, all right, David, let's come at this from 2 angles. So you go around and just ask people as a standard investigation what's going on and see what you can find out. And I will pose as a curious noble who has far too much free time and is interested in, let's say, a more spicy religious experience. In other words, I went sniffing around to join the cult. And that's exactly what we did. David got a few notes on places where suspicious goings on, chanting and screaming, you know, that fun culty stuff, had been heard. Creepy vibes. And before the Scooby-Doo gang showed up, our helpful informant told David about the general location of where he could find out the creepy stuff that's going on. Meanwhile, I just straight up got invited into the cult. So I'm in, I've got a time and a place, I'm expected. I told them that I would be bringing my chauffeur. And David's character, Wisdom, now posing as my chauffeur, maybe my chaperone, since my character is actually small in size because of the permanent reduced person spell cast on him. So he kind of looks like a child, and he kind of acts like a child. But he's also wearing, like, you know, full armor and weapons and things, so I don't know. You be the judge. Moving on. This time we leave the animals at home, except of course, Sergeant Whiskers is never included in the list of animals. And at level 7, my character actually discovers something about Sergeant Whiskers. His true form is revealed. And I have a big old sheet of paper with all the special things that Sergeant Whiskers can do because he has achieved his true form. But basically he's like a magical space karma cat, and he is pretty awesome. He flies, he can use some neat holy abilities that could prove useful over the course of our adventure. He avoids combat, as you do. A Sergeant Whiskers should not be fighting on the front lines. He's far too useful, draping himself over my shoulders like a cloak and just telling me what to do. But he can do neat things like turn into a gaseous form as the spell, which basically means that he doesn't take damage from regular weapons. They need to be magical to strike him. And he can do cool stuff like, slip under the crack of a door and all kinds of fun stuff like that. He has a few other neat special abilities, and he's almost sort of maybe a little bit a tiny cat paladin. Not literally at this point. No, we'll see where that goes. But suffice to say, he's pretty neat, and he picked up a few more useful abilities. So, there I was. Just me and my chauffeur, armed to the teeth, invited to a cult meeting. The woman who greeted us at the door was the same one who inducted me into the cult, and she was leading us upstairs. No one else around. So I just decided to draw my sword and knock her unconscious. And that's exactly what I did. Time to think on my feet. So I used my alter self tail, which, by the way, catching up to speed here, my character is a kitsune, a magical fox person. Shapeshifter, not a furry, just want to make that extra clear. And I can use the spell-like ability Alter Self because of this magical tail that I've grown. Twice a day I can take on the appearance of another humanoid. So I took on the appearance of this woman, I put on the robes, and I walk myself upstairs, and Sam is just like, okay, you're not ruining this for me this time. Because it would have been the perfect chance to just completely throw a wrench into the ritual entirely that we heard going on upstairs. But it finished by the time we arrived, and a massive, terrifying demon had been summoned, siphoning off the life force of the poor dupes who'd been invited to perform the ritual. And immediately, shrieking, horrified screams break out all around us. We made our save against fear and fought the monster. On top of the building, the rain pouring down in the darkness of night, a creature of pure, unsearchable evil had been summoned by this nefarious cult. Their leader, their organizer, unconscious, floors below us. And we, now fighting for our lives against a demonic creature that gets 5 claw attacks per round. Ridiculous. And has really ridiculous inflated stats to the point that even with, I think I was rocking a 38 AC, which is just insane for a level 7 character, but again, paladin, smite evil, you get really good bonuses for that kind of stuff, and my character has a far higher dexterity than any character should ever have in a D&D style game. 38 armor class, and I get critically hit by the claws of this creature, I think 2 or 3 times. So every round at the top of my turn, I'm using my Lay on Hands ability to heal myself for some damage. And I think Wisdom actually threw a healing spell my way at one point. Meanwhile, he's sitting back and casting some very useful buffing spells. And I'm going toe-to-toe with a creature that should mop the floor with me. But again, overpowered character, fantastic gear, and a paladin fighting an evil outsider. The outcome was somewhat hard fought, but it was predictable. I poked some very large holes in a very evil creature, and we ended the night victorious. Well, I say that, but I go just walking out of the building, Wisdom behind me, carrying the unconscious, once again, the person we're sent to go investigate. We just knock them the heck out and cart them back to the person that gave us the quest. This is the third time that the ringleader of whatever it is that we're going after, we knock him out and we bring him back to the person that gave us the quest. So we're very good at getting information. We just bring the person that knows everything. You know, they'll have a really bad headache, but they won't be as dead as all the other people that were involved. So I go to leave this house where the monster had been summoned from. The shrieking went away. It was an effect that demonic horror produced. By the way, the thing had a boatload of hit points. And after that fight, Sam was like, "That's it. You're fighting nothing but dragons after this." It was a ridiculously powerful monster for characters of our level to fight. But like I said, paladin. In just really good stats. I've been given everything. It's an over-the-top campaign that we're playing. And that will become apparent with the next thing that happens. So I go to leave the house, and the city guards open fire on me. I jump out of the way right away and explain the situation. I had made the mistake of still wearing my cultist robes. In fact, I think I was still wearing the face of the cultist that I was impersonating. So, completely understandable. I did a fantastic job of explaining what was going on, and we received our reward. I acquired celestial armor for myself as a reward, which is a fantastic set of light armor that also allows me to fly. So that's pretty neat. My ridiculous armor class gets even higher. David chose something neat for himself. I think it was, it was some kind of holy hammer. Really good for smashing things. That should up his melee prowess a bit. It's all very useful. Next up, the night wasn't quite over, so we tried setting up another, just a quick, simple encounter. You know, a little something to roll some dice and make some progress. Not a lot of story was the idea. Well, we went to the Adventurers Guild that we had first gotten our quests from, and there was a notice posted about 3... what are they called? 3 Ifrit that were causing trouble. I like to think that these Ifriti were sort of vacationing in the common realm, and they're basically like fire genies, nobles, very powerful and influential, strong and tough opponents in combat, cunning, conniving, self-serving, and generally just not all that fun to be around if you're a common dirt farmer. So I can see how the poor peoples of the desert towns in the area might be a bit fed up with these Ifrits. But as I mentioned, They're extremely powerful. They're cunning. They're deadly in combat. In other words, if they feel like being jerks, then they pretty much just get to walk all over people until someone dumb enough goes sticking their nose into their business. We were dumb enough. We were plenty dumb. And I came up with a brilliant plan. You see, Sergeant Whiskers knows a lot about religious stuff and about extraplanar stuff, because his origin is actually from across the plains, so he has lots of knowledge there. He told us some interesting thing about Afrits. One of those, that they can grant wishes. Wish is a level 9 spell in Pathfinder. It's the strongest spell that you can normally cast as an extremely high level character. It's the kind of thing that can break campaigns. It's the kind of thing that can turn your campaign into something ridiculous. Dear God, what happens to a campaign that's already ridiculous? We're about to find out. That is, if we can convince these Afriti to grant us some wishes. I'm a paladin. I am a chosen one. At least, my character. I like to think I'm a paladin in real life anyway, but I'm a crazy person. And Makoto came up with a plan. I discussed it with David's character. Said, Wisdom, I'm not I don't really want anything other than to complete my mission. So my plan is I'll challenge the toughest one, whoever seems like their leader or whoever seems the strongest. I'll challenge him to a duel. If I win, then I'll ask for a wish for myself and a wish for you. My wish will be that the other two are banished from this plane as long as I live. Seemed like a pretty cool wish. Great way of completing the mission. You can tell, I like to come up with just very tasty, satisfying ways to complete my missions. Not just going in there and killing everything. I mean, come on. We got creativity for a reason. And Wisdom can wish for whatever he wants. It would be a good idea for him to consult with Sergeant Whiskers first, though. Sergeant Whiskers, very wise. And also, one of Sergeant Whiskers' useful abilities is that he can cast the Commune spell and ask up to 6 questions of Cat Bro, the cat god, who is the real power behind the thing that makes me a chosen one. Cat Bro is a little bit tired of listening to the stupid stuff that I ask him. But if Sergeant Whiskers seeks Cat Bro's help on a good wish for asking an Afrit, that might be something that's just weird enough to get Cat Bro's attention. We'll find out. It's not hard to find the Afrits. As I mentioned, they were having a good time. They were on vacation. They were causing trouble for the locals, such as were still around. Such as they could chase down, I suppose. We were led to them immediately. The guy who led us there promptly took off. Not a bad idea. You think fire genie, you think fireball pretty darn fast. At least 30 feet away. At least. Maybe stick around to see what happens, though. That gear looks pretty valuable. Maybe the Afrits won't want it all after they pick it off our dead bodies. I make my challenge. I make my bargain. As a way of being fair, I made the deal that if I should fall in the duel, then the Afrit could have whatever he wants off my dead body. I didn't think it would happen, but it would be kind of a shame to die and also lose my celestial armor in the same day. That isn't what was going to happen. Did I mention that paladins are really, really good against evil outsiders? So this souped up noble Efreet accepts my duel. I make the first move. I rolled a really low roll for my initiative, but my stupidly high dexterity came through for me, and Sam didn't have a fantastic roll for the Efreet either. I got one of my first critical hits. It was great. I dealt I think around 80 something, no, maybe just 60 something damage in the first turn. It was pretty nice. The Efreet took a swing at me. He missed. I was expecting him to miss. Like I said, paladins are pretty good against evil outsiders. Second round, another critical hit. I was tallying up the damage. It was somewhere around 80 for the next round of damage. And Sam said, yeah, he dies. So, the Efreet that I was dueling, taken down in, let's say, between 7 and 10 seconds. It was less of a duel and more of an execution. But it was executed beautifully. That Efreet's not coming back right away. He got banished pretty hard. Not an actual banishment, though, so he can come back to the prime material plane. The other two kept up their side of the bargain. They granted a wish for wisdom, and they granted my wish that they banish themselves as long as I'm alive. Those two are not coming back. I may have slightly pissed off a genie, so we'll see if that comes back to bite me in the future. Wisdom decides on his wish. Wisdom decides to wish that he essentially become a complete and utter badass shapeshifter. In other words, Wisdom wished to be permanently under the effect of the shape change spell. That means that once per round, as a free action, in other words, every time it's David's turn to roll the dice, he can pick a dragon, a monster, and a few other things. Actually, quite a few other things, including plant-type creatures, to shapeshift into as a swift action. Every time he rolls the dice, he can be what he wants to be. And as a dragon, he gets ludicrously elevated strength and constitution scores, both very useful for him. He still has the ability to cast spells. He can fly. He is huge. He has 5 natural attacks. He deals very good damage. And he can use his breath weapon as much as he wants. 12d... I think it's 12d8 elemental damage based upon the type of dragon he's turned into. And he can change type every round. He can reuse his breath weapon. I think it's once every 1d4 rounds. Suffice to say, everything that crosses our path is in grave danger. That's just for the dragons. Dragon shape is probably one of the most overpowered level 9 spells in the game. Sorry, it's a level 8 spell. Shape change just gives you beautifully unlimited access to it. For as long as the spell lasts, of course. And his shape change is permanent. Now, a word about wishes. This is one of those ask your DM kinds of things. Wishes are only going to work the way that your dungeon master wants them to work. And like I said, it's easily one of the most game-breaking things that can be introduced to a campaign. You don't want to get greedy with them, because it starts breaking the world, or it'll break your character, because wishes can go wrong. And genies can kind of be a little bit pernicious sometimes. Does help if you beat the crud out of their boss before you ask them nicely to do you something as a favor. So, David's character is extremely powerful. And that's pretty cool now, because before he was around, he was available for healing. He was no pushover when it came to tanking damage, but he was starting to lag behind my character with regard to the things that we were fighting. Not in a way that he was, not useful, but now. Well, let's put it this way. Our characters were overpowered before Wisdom made this incredible wish. Such a fun wish. We're a party of shape changers now. I have some ideas about what to do with that into the future, especially since I plan on taking up leadership, which is a feat that I had access to at level 7, but I can pick it up at level 9, and it basically makes me able to be the leader of an organization. Wouldn't it be cool to have like let's call it a mercenary group of shape changers? You have David, who's magically become a shape changer. You have Makoto, who is naturally a shapeshifter, a kitsune, who loves to do little sneaky, tricksy things with his shape-changing abilities. And Sergeant Whiskers, who is also somewhat ephemeral himself. You know what? I'll bet the shape changers of the world could use an organization that would support them, give them purpose, and also a little bit of license to have fun. Maybe that's something that's coming up soon. But for now, our characters were ridiculously powerful. You might say that they're overpowered, and that's just fun to play sometimes. In fact, I'm having a blast, and I think Sam and David are as well. In fact, I know they are. I'm looking forward to next week. But now, we also have a Mythic Rating. What's that mean? We're basically living legends, and there are mechanics built in to Pathfinder as a way of expressing that. Not sure how it works, but I'm interested to find out. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.